now you have a decision to make. Are you going to do it or you're not going to do it? Because a lot of times you come to that deciding moment, that crossroads moment in time where it's like, I could either go there, I could not go there. Not going there means staying exactly where I am, and going there means doing something different.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is What You Don't Hear. This is a life podcast. It's a story podcast. It's a bit of an open journal dive into people's lives as I sit and uncover the real story behind my guest's journey, finding out what makes them who they are and digging into the parts of their story that we normally wouldn't get to hear about. Who am I? Well, I am your host. My name is Ross Tyson. I'm a freelancer of all kinds. I'm a creative director. I've been known to dabble as a filmmaker. I'm quietly working on building a media empire. But of course, as you can tell, in this case, I'm a podcaster because I'm someone who just, really enjoys talking to people. Mostly about their lives and their dreams, their goals, their fears, and of course, everything in between. So, as always with these intros as of late, I've got an awesome guest and a conversation to share with you soon. But before we dive into that conversation and get into the story, I've got some cool things to tell you about first because there's some people helping me keep the lights on. That's right, there's some people helping me keep this show afloat. And honestly, that still hasn't really set in to feel real just yet. The fact that this show, that's right, has a couple sponsors, and I'm going to tell you about them right now. So first up, this episode is brought to you in part by Makers Social, a place that is actually located right here in the Franklinton Arts District, where I happen to make this podcast out of. So what is Makers Social? Well, Makers Social is a DIY project bar where you can get your hands messy with some real fun projects like woodworking, jewelry making, or even making your own real leather wallets. Crafts of all kinds, folks. They also host private events such as team building, corporate events, and even birthdays. Now, what's more interesting is they also have a full bar stocked with cocktails, local beers, and a very rare bourbon list for all you bourbon collectors out there. So, honestly, what's more fun than getting your craft on with some friends while maybe getting your drink on as well for a night out? And right now, you can go make a reservation on their website, and if you do, you can type in the code WYDH into the notes section of your checkout. And guess what happens when you do that? You get $10 off your project's booking. So head over to makerscolumbus.com if you want to go check it out. For real, if you've never been, you should go. Grab some friends, go make some fun projects with them. Or at a bare minimum, book some time. I've been saying this, just book some time and go talk to Megan and meet her because she's super cool. She's made a super cool place in Makers Social. So once again, to book a reservation, go to makerscolumbus.com, enter WYDH in the notes of your checkout for $10 off, and support some fun local things that are going down here in Franklinton. Now, this episode is also brought to you in part by Promo West Productions. And folks, you know the drill by now. I've got some more cool shows that you can go check out, and I'm going to tell you about them because talking about Columbus's music scene is one thing, but going out and experiencing it is another. So, if you're interested in catching a live show, you can check out one of these upcoming concerts that are going down at Newport Music Hall via Promo West. So on September 20th, they've got Trombone Shorty. Then they've got Wolf Alice on October 3rd, Floor on Friday, October 7th, and L7 on October 13th. So, if any of those pique your interest and you want to grab some tickets, you can visit axs.com, or, as always, in general, for more info about these or any upcoming shows, you can find all that info you need over at promowestlive.com. So again, to find tickets, axs.com, or just hop to promowestlive.com to find out anything you need about all the upcoming events and shows. So let's get to this week's conversation. Let's dive in. Episode 64 of the show. And this week, I sit down and I get to know Ryan Husband. He is the founder and CEO of his lifestyle and activewear brand, LRX Apparel. He's got a very motivating view on life and how he wants to help others. And of course, we dive into all of it, from how he started the company and why, the battles of self-belief and staying motivated, getting out of your own way to pursue the things that you really want to do, how you can better figure out how to uncover your purpose in what it is you do or what you want to do. Of course, his personal ups and downs, and a whole lot more as always, but I could list it out all for you here. But I'll just let Ryan tell you himself. So let's get to it. Here it is, episode 64 of What You Don't Hear. Well, dude, you ready to do this?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother.
Dude, thank you so much for being down to do this.
I'm excited. It's going to be fun.
We've been chatting a little bit since you got here about how we met, and it was like a quick, probably like a 5-minute conversation because you were doing a pop-up shop with LRX at the gym that I go to, CrossFit Gahanna. And I told you pre-pod, I was like, I knew at that point, I was like, all right, I want to talk to this dude because I remember talking to you a little bit about, what LRX is, like how, all that sort of stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have him on the podcast one day. I was like, I want to see if he's down. So I'm glad that we are finally here.
Yeah.
So even rehash for me or for anybody who's listening who might not know, give me the layout. You're the owner of LRX Apparel. It's a lifestyle and fitness brand, right? What's the elevator pitch of LRX? What is LRX?
So it's funny. We actually always talk to. I teach this to our reps all the time. Our community directors that we have across the U.S. And we basically just say LRX means live prescribed. We create clothing that's the prescription to your active lifestyle. Clothes you can train in, live in, rest in. Clothes you want to wear anywhere. So basically, we believe if you find balance in the way you train, live, and rest, you find life.
Man, so that's one thing right off the bat that I love the live prescribed thing.
Yeah, man.
I love that.
Yeah,
great
100%.
tagline, great motto. Like I love it.
Thank you.
And the other thing was like when you and I talked that day in the gym, one of the big things that stuck out that you kind of emphasized was like, we wanted to create a fitness apparel that was comfortable to wear.
Yeah.
Which is surprising, like when you said that, I don't know if I had ever thought about that necessarily before.
Yeah, 100%.
Of like, oh no, like fitness apparel in general might be pretty uncomfortable because it's made for maybe more of like a rugged approach or something.
Yeah.
Like what? So even diving into that, take me back. We'll open the floodgates. What was the thing that spawned you wanting to create LRX?
So LRX was originated from just an idea and a goal to help people to align with their purpose for their life. So to me, live prescribed means live with purpose. The prescription for life is purpose, right? So when you have purpose, you have more fulfillment in your life, you have more joy, you have the ability to actually align with what you're created to do, right? When people have purpose, they actually feel like they're giving value back to the world. You look at our day, you look at our world today, right? People are on unemployment or they don't have a job, right? And we're wondering why our world is depressed, anxious, and stressed out and all these different things. But the fact of the matter is, the reason we were created in the first place is so that we could actually have value and add value to the world. When we do that, we're actually aligning with what we were created to do. So for me, it came from a time and a period of my life where I was struggling really badly with anxiety and depression. I was actually on the front porch with my mom. I told my mom, I'm going to take my life. Like I was going to kill myself. And it was this really big moment in this transition where I was honestly just begging God for some type of clarity, some type of insight of like, what do I need to do, right? And the clarity was, I'm going to use my pain for purpose. And all that came from this, my parents were getting a divorce, grandma had passed away, girlfriend and I were in a relationship for 4.5 years, we broke up. I quit college soccer, which was a lot of my identity. And I needed to find an understanding of what my life would look like and what purpose my life had, because everything that I knew up until that point was kind of coming to an end. So my whole goal with LRX was actually to create something that would call people to action to understand that their life does have purpose and give them the avenue to really live in alignment with what they're intended to do, right? And that goes for everybody. We all have a purpose on this world, in this world and on this earth, and I just want everybody to know that and actually align with that, because there's too many times in our world we're working 9-to-5 jobs that we don't love, that we don't like, and we're waiting for the day to be over. And I was like, there's no need for that. You can actually do something that you want to do that impacts and serves people, that gives you an identity or a purpose in this world that adds value to other people. So that's the origin story of LRX. And I don't think I shared that with you when we first met, but It was more so just the understanding and the hope that we could give people an opportunity to do something more with their life than they realized was even possible.
Man, I love that. So, okay, so I want to dive into kind of where you were in that time frame.
Yeah.
But even before we take that deep dive, like what was it in that decision-making process that, yes, it's to help people identify like, hey, there's more to your life. There's more that you can unlock to figure out what your purpose really is. Yeah. What was it that made you take the fitness world?
Yeah. So I was obviously involved in soccer. I played soccer my whole entire life, 17, 18 years of soccer. And then when I was done with that, I was getting into CrossFit and just figuring out ways that I could, continue on being competitive after quitting after quitting soccer. And I had done CrossFit just to kind of supplement to get better for soccer. And then once I was done, I started coaching CrossFit, all the different stuff, and then seeing just that opportunity where I really loved fitness and had a passion for fitness. So then I wanted to go down that route. And growing up, when I was in college, I had dreams and aspirations. I really loved style. I loved the idea of, clothing and what I was wearing and stuff like that. I would dress up and wear just different types of different clothing and just try to, stick out in a way when I was in high school and then in college. And I wanted to be a marketing manager for Express or Abercrombie & Fitch, and those were places that were local to Columbus, Ohio, and opportunities that I could have potentially gone down. And those were always of interest to me. But then I also love fitness, right? And the activewear was actually just when I first started it, I had a dream and aspiration to open a gym, and so I was actually creating the clothing to brand myself for the gym later down the road to just kind of get some brand recognition. And after that, I kind of started liking the idea of the apparel. And I also started liking the idea of being able to build a business that wasn't just tied to one specific location, right? You open up a gym, it's one location. How do we build something that's all over the place? So that's the reason I went down the active route, is because one, I liked clothing. I liked the idea of being able to create something that somebody could wear and put on their body and call them to action, do something in their life. And then also the idea that we could travel around and go to these different places and meet more people and never be stuck in the same place for a long period of time.
Yeah. Okay, so I love that it transitioned from you wanting to start your own gym, but you start. I love the idea of you starting it with something else as like almost not so much a direct route, but almost like a roundabout way to maybe getting to the bigger thing, because I feel like I think that way a lot, where I'm like, okay, maybe we can't get to step 10.
Right.
But what's a step 1 or 2 that still makes something exist that will maybe help propel us to that step 10? That's something I feel like a lot of people get really caught up on, is they get that kind of tunnel vision of, if I can't just do the thing, the final biggest thing that I want to do, and I can't do it by tomorrow, there's just no other way.
Yeah.
And forgetting that, just like you said, it's like, okay, I started the activewear brand as a way to start building the brand, build that brand awareness, like start building probably the culture that you wanted that eventual company or brand to have. Mm-hmm. And if you build that up, you're already building a foundation to then build bigger things on top of, rather than just waking up one day and saying, well, if I can't start a gym tomorrow, I guess I just can't do this.
I think that's the hardest thing is, a lot of times if we're entrepreneurs or we're business owners or even, in the creative field, we're perfectionists. We want everything to look perfect. So, you buy the fanciest equipment, you do all this stuff, and realistically, you just need to start, because everybody starts somewhere. So when I first started, it was 2 T-shirts, and that's where it was. And I didn't know anything better than that at that point. I didn't even know, the process. That was like a new process for me, brand new, had no experience in fashion, or had no experience in design, no expensive in textiles, anything like that. But you have to just start somewhere. And I think we get so caught up, in so many people, they're working jobs, like I said earlier, and they're like, oh, I want to go do this. But then I'd have to start at like ground zero. I'd have to start at that first step, which is actually a lot harder for them, because not only are they starting at a place where they're depleting their income, whether it's $50,000 to $100,000 a year, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna start at zero. That's risky, right? Or, they just continue going down that path. And I always tell somebody, I'm like, if you're going half in, half out on one thing, if you're going half in on one thing and half in on another thing, you're never going to go full all the way, right? You have to put all your eggs in one basket and just go for it, because the outcome that you want to have, it's not just this halfway outcome. It's this full picture of what you're really wanting to do in longevity.
Yeah.
So
you started with 2 T-shirts.
Yeah.
So was that just like, hey, I made 2 different designs. I was just kind of testing them out, like wearing them myself or giving them to friends. Like, what was the process of you literally just getting started like?
Yeah, so when my grandma passed away, she actually left an inheritance of almost $40,000 for me. I spent a lot of that on, tuition, car, a ton of different stuff, and just bought a bunch of stuff because I was honestly realistically sad, and spent a lot of money on different things that I didn't really need at the time, and I had my last $500 in my bank account, and I was like, all right, we're gonna do this. So I had $500. I bought 50 T-shirts, got them printed, same design. There was like a white colored T-shirt and then a navy T-shirt, same design, just different color print on them, and then got them and just started saying, hey friends, I'm launching this company. And I think it's funny because a lot of people always ask me, like, how'd you start? Why'd you start? What's the process? Because everybody and their mom wants to start a T-shirt company. And I think it's hilarious because what I tell people now is, if you want to start an apparel company, I said, don't even buy the t-shirts. Take a year and literally just create content, and then give them valuable content for a full entire year. Build an email list, and then launch that to the email list. Launch the t-shirts to the email list a year later about the stuff that you've been creating, and then you're going to be successful. What's going to happen is you're going to have all your friends buy your shirts, and then you're going to wonder why nobody else is buying anything. It's because your friends supported you just because they like you. They bought into you. You have to make sure that you're building an audience that actually buys into the concept first, and then give them a lot of value on the back end. But I think it's for me, it's like that's the process that I always tell people when it went down, and that was kind of how I started and why I started, and what I had in front of me. And you had to go through that loop, right? I had to start building this story of like, this isn't just, my friends buying this product. This is, me going places and asking people to buy the product, right? Instead of just relying on the friends to help me get there. It wasn't going to happen. I only have so many friends, and most of those people that purchase then, they don't purchase now. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you just shared there is so good, because again, it's kind of like we were talking about earlier, making that plan of, you don't just have to be able to get to step 10 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Everything that you just explained of like, if somebody was going to start an apparel brand today,
yeah.
build up the brand awareness first, build up the actual culture that you want the company to have, and then build to the launch of the actual garment. And like, I love that you answered that, because like that was going to be one of my next questions.
Yeah.
Because something you and I have in common, I had an apparel brand back in the day.
Yeah.
I did it when it was like trendy to do in the music industry. So there was a point in time where everybody in the music scene was like starting a clothing line.
Yeah.
And right when I was leaving high school, I was like, I'm friends with all these bands and I'm in the music scene, and this is what they're all doing. So you know what? Like, I've been teaching myself graphic design. I'll do this too. And it went the exact same way that you were just talking about, where it was like, luckily at that time, I'm originally from a very small Ohio town.
Yeah.
So, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but like anybody doing anything in that town is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So it worked for the longest time, where it was like, oh my God, like what, you have a clothing line? Like you have an apparel brand? Like, oh my God. So it was like all the friends, all the local people and surrounding towns were like eating it up, right?
Yeah.
For me, I ended up stopping because I honestly got bored with it. I literally just like, I did it for a couple of years, and I was like, this is fun, but I can really identify that it's just a phase that I was kind of going through of like, it was a trendy thing.
Yeah.
I knew how to do graphic design well enough, or I knew other graphic designers who could help me. I just wanted to do it just to say I did it, kind of check it off almost a life bucket list in a way.
Right.
And again, I knew a bunch of bands who were like, let us wear your stuff at our shows and our promos, all this sort of stuff. So like, it luckily had that kind of like natural organic growth that was like, all right, cool, I've got places that this can go.
Yeah.
But it ended up going the route of just like, kind of just like fizzled out, slowed down, and I was like, I just don't want to do this anymore. But that was even going to be something I was going to ask you, is like, just out of pure intrigue of like, if somebody was looking to start one now, is that the route you'd say to go? Is like build the brand and the culture first, then get to the actual product?
I think the problem is it's the instant gratification idea, right?
Yeah,
we always want to flex on the front end and act like we're doing something, because it convinces others that we're doing something, but more so it convinces ourselves that we're doing something, right? And instead, like, what's the outcome? I mean, you're going to have imposter syndrome. You're going to think that you're not really doing anything. You're going to think that you don't, kind of live up to what you're doing. But I think a lot of times it's like, instant gratification is never going to get you anywhere. I started my company 5 years ago, and we're nowhere near where I want to be. But I know that every single step that I put, every single egg that I put in the basket of, this is where I want to go, this is where I want to go, this is where I want to go, that it was what has propelled me to here. And you have to have this, this really huge patience, and you have to really want to do what you're doing, right? You talk about this phase that you went through. Realistically, if it's not aligning with what your purpose is, that's okay that it was this phase of life. It helped you to get to where you are now, and it's given you insight, and it's made you who you are today. But you have to really know what you want with it, and it has to be sustainable too. Yeah. And realistically, it has to make you money. If it doesn't do that, then you're gonna get to a point in your life when you want to get married, have kids, and the wife's gonna be like, "Yo, like, you're not bringing any money in.
Why are we printing these T-shirts?
What are you doing this for?" You know what I mean? And that's, I think it's just for somebody that wants to start I would caution, I would tell them that, and by hearing their response to that, I would tell them whether, based on their response, I would say, you're probably not going to want to do this, and it's not going to be successful for you in longevity. And that, I've said that to tons of people that come over to me and ask that question when I'm at events or different things like that. I tell them straight up. I said, if you don't do this, you're probably not going to be successful, you know, at least for 3, 4, 5 years, unless you keep going. But you have to add value. Right? If you add value and it changes somebody's life, then that's going to be able to be enough fulfillment for you to want to keep going.
And I feel like nowadays that's such a larger proponent than maybe back when like I could get away with having a clothing line, because that was in 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, like it was just the cool, trendy thing to do. And again, at that time, living in the small town that I did, it was just cool and amazing and crazy, right? That has changed now. It's where like, yes, that could still be cool and fun and trendy or whatever, but you're so correct in saying that like, you got to have that value add. And I know it sounds like we're talking very businessy right now, but in my opinion, we're not. We're actually just talking just human to human level of like,
100%.
How are you adding value to somebody else? It doesn't mean that your shirt that someone wears changes their life. But it's the idea surrounding the brand that maybe could. Like, is there a positive influence? Is there a thought-provoking thing? And yes, I get it. Somebody listening could be like, if it's a cool shirt, it's a cool shirt at the end of the day. Totally. But that's the value add. Like, the value can be the comfortable, cool-looking shirt. But the value add can be, what does this brand stand for? What does it make me feel? What does it make me think? And that, I think, would be the biggest difference between, like, looking at back in the day when it was trendy to have a clothing line and it was just fun to do. And if you could get some cool designs and you had some friends to wear them, great. Now, again, you're totally correct in, like, because everything is on social media all the time, everybody can see behind the scenes of everything all the time. I think even in marketing in general, like the days of just like being really, really flashy and cool are kind of behind. And now like, what does everybody want? Everybody wants to know who owns this thing. Who are the people that are working for this thing? That's what we want to know. What are the values of this brand, values of this company? That sells way more than, oh, is the product nice? Is the product cool? And obviously you have social media being an element of like, now there's a magnifying glass, an open door to see all of these things being created. And that's 100% where people's attention tends to go.
Right. No, for sure, man. I think you have to be authentic. You have to add value. And I think even just like from a content perspective, like the stuff that gets more engagement is the stuff that's raw and authentic, and that makes people's lives better, you know? And I think it's cool how it's kind of transformed everything. Like the flashy was the cool, and then the Instagram was the highlight reel. And realistically, for you to grow on social media right now, it's not the Instagram, the highlight reel, because people could care less what your highlight reel looks like. They want to know you as a person, because that's really the raw picture of what life looks like. So when you share that stuff, that's when the engagement goes up, you know? It's because people care. It provides value, so. And
that's one thing while we're on the topic. I will just give you huge props because I love the LRX social presence.
Thanks, bro.
Like because I feel like you guys have a really cool balance of like, here's some like sleek, well-made, intentional content. And while there's still intention in all of it, here's like some just raw, kind of gritty, just in the moment. Like we're not, you know, over editing. We're not doing anything. And again, like I feel like you guys do a really good job at sharing the message of what you want the brand to do or feel for people, but also balancing it well with like, this is what this brand is. Yes, it's fitness, it's lifestyle, it's activewear, but here's also what it kind of stands for. Here's what it means. So like, props to you across the table, because like I literally love looking at the LRX social. Like it's solid. It's
fun, man. I mean, we want our brand to be a call to action to people, right? And if people look at it and it's immediately like, oh, I can't live up to that, or I can't wear that because I'm not that good or that cool, I don't want to do that, you know? Like if it's not making somebody's life better or calling them to action to be better or live in alignment with what they're called to do, I don't want to do it, because there's just too much of that in our world. And to be honest, I mean, from a business standpoint, we want to be, you know, they talk about, and there's a book that I've read, it's called Blue Ocean Strategy, right? And you either in the red ocean or in the blue ocean. The red ocean is where all the competitors are, you know, sharks are in the water, it's bloody, right? But then in the blue ocean, it's the authentic, the new ideas that nobody else is doing because they're not willing to do it, but it's more risky because nobody else is doing it. They've seen that this is successful, but the things that are going to stick out and stand out and push you into the direction that you want to go are the things that nobody else is doing. So for us, it's like we look at, you know, for a benchmark, we look at like Lululemon, Nike, Viore. Those are like the activewear brands. We're trying to be an activewear brand. We're not just trying to be in one domain of fitness, but we want to walk into that picture and be like, oh wow, we want to be the brand that cares about people. It's not about how much money we make. It's not about the bottom line. It's more about our bottom line is how are people's lives being changed, and what's the feedback and the heartbeat that's being felt internally and then also externally from people when they talk about LRX as a brand. Is it, wow, they're really good at selling products, or they, like the product is, way too expensive and they're just trying to rip us off? No, it's like, we want them to be like, okay, I want to purchase that because I'm basically just saying, I align with that. I believe in that. I want to do that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I want to be a part of this community.
That's what I was about to say. Is like, it makes them say they want to be a part of something. Not just, oh, I want to buy the shirt just because, or I want this because I go to the gym, or, whatever it may be. It's, I want to feel like I am a part of this thing that's being built.
100%.
So I know we touched a little bit, earlier of like the spawning point of LRX and the idea and all that sort of stuff. But like, where in general even does like this mindset that we're even talking about come from? Because it sounds like you're a very like inviting, also motivational, like thought-provoking, it sounds like you're a person who's like, I want to help other people be better however I can. And yes, of course, if I can create a cool brand and make some money and have a fun business, that's the platform I can do it with, right? Where does this like mindset come from?
Yeah, well, I mean, growing up, I was the kid that, I sat in the cafeteria and I would invite the kids that, weren't popular or weren't as cool, or like that people perceive them as, in the cafeteria. And I was sitting at a table and asking all these kids that are sitting by themselves to come and sit with me, right? And it wasn't that it's not that I wasn't a popular kid in high school. I just didn't do what everybody else did. I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs, I didn't do all that stuff, right? And I felt like in a way I had a couple friends, but I was more of like a loner, like, and I was still popular. Like I was still, I was, captain of the soccer team, like very involved in a lot of different things, had a lot of talents and skill sets. I just wouldn't go with the crowd and what other people were doing. So for me, I think it started at a young age of like, feeling in a way an outcast, but not at the same time, right? But I wanted to create something that welcomed people in, because there was time in my life where I didn't feel like my life had value, right? Or my life was good enough, right? And I didn't want people to feel that way because I felt that way, for a long period of time in my life. And it wasn't like the sad life that I lived or anything like that. It was just a small piece of the puzzle that was missing in a way that I wanted to create that would welcome others into it, right? I wanted people to have a sense of home. I wanted people to have a sense of like understanding that, there are people that care about them regardless of what their mind's telling them. Because how many times do we trick ourselves when we're sitting somewhere, we're with a group of friends, or we're with people, and we're like, I'm not good enough to be here. I'm not good enough to operate in this space, or like they don't really like me, or all these different things. It's like the transparency and the understanding and then the confidence that can be built and being around people that build you up and make you better. That's why I created the brand, because I wanted to create a space where people could feel that, you know what I mean? And we could bring everybody together, because there's so much challenge that goes in life, like from a popularity standpoint, or from a, like I'm better than you, or this, I'm better than that. Who cares? That doesn't matter. What matters is that you're aligning with what you want to do, and you're bringing people around you, and you're serving others at the same time. And if you're doing that, like that provides value and it makes you feel better. So I wanted to create something that would give people that same opportunity, that same understanding. And it just happens to be in activewear and in a fitness setting at the same time. So it's super weird, man. I just think, when you're in that space, it's like, why can't we all just get along? You know what I mean?
Right,
it sounds so silly.
Yeah.
But I also think that there was a lot of times, and because of my authenticity, I felt like people thought like I was fake. Like that they because I was so kind to people, they're like, oh, this guy's just doing that for attention. I'm like, and you can't be authentic. It's like you couldn't, in high school or in college or whatever it was, you couldn't be authentic, or you couldn't just be a good person. It's like that was a bad thing, or like you're fake, or you're arrogant. It's like, no, like I just want to be a good person. You know what I mean? And like, that's all there is to it. There's nothing more to it than that, Well,
that's like sometimes there's that weird, separation that people have, especially when you tiptoe into the realm of confidence. Right. So if being simply confident, and obviously there's the fine line of confidence and cockiness, right? Yeah. But if being authentic to yourself means being confident in who you are or what you do, like, it's weird because some people don't like that.
Yeah.
And it's very strange. So I think that like leans with the same thing that you were saying of like, sometimes if you're just being very friendly or you want to be friends or engaging with people, people are like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing this?
Right.
And it's because there's just that weird like gray area where I think when somebody is like confident in themselves, like if you were sitting,
that's scary to people.
They're like, oh, I don't like that. Like, that person's arrogant. I don't like that. Because realistically, they're looking at that person and wishing they could be like that. Right. So then they're going to say something negative about the person just because they don't like the fact that that person seems more happy with their life than them. Yep. And then what gets even weirder is if you had that conversation with that person.
Yeah.
I would say more often than not, it'll probably upset them.
Yeah.
So if you literally said what you just said right here to a person who was like, oh man, you're being really arrogant. If you were like, well, no, man, I don't really think that's it. Like, maybe you're seeing something in me or the way that I'm acting that you're unhappy with about yourself. Let's talk about it.
I think we just need to have self-awareness for ourselves, right? When we look at somebody and we think that they're arrogant, we have to ask ourselves, why do we feel that way, right? Because then it's going to open up the door for to answer that question. Because we could go to immediately like, oh, they're arrogant, I don't like them. Or it could go to like, why do I feel like they're arrogant? Is it something that I feel inside of myself about myself that makes me feel that way towards them? We talked about this all the time in our team. One of our core values is ownership, right? Own your feelings, own what you're thinking about, and understand why, and have enough self-awareness to adjust your feelings based on the situation, and then also look back on yourself and reflect and say, why am I feeling this way? Is it their problem or is it my problem? And more often than not, it's your problem. Because nothing's been said, so why wouldn't it be something that you're just telling yourself?
It's a lot of that projecting.
Yeah.
It's projecting your inner feelings. And like, especially like working in, over the last, handful of years, working in, the freelance world, the creative business world, whatever you want to call it, like I had to catch myself on the fact that I would often project on other people that I would work with on certain projects, because I had to kind of reel myself in, because like, I'm that person who's like, oh, we're talking about an idea? Dope. Let's talk. Let's make the plan. Let's see if it's possible. Is it plausible? What can we do? Like, I'm that friend who gets really excited when somebody tells me they have an idea or a goal they want to pursue. I don't have the answers of how you can do that, but I do have a lot of like motivational things that I want to share with you and say like, okay, let's try and figure it out.
Yeah.
Is there a way that I could help, or how could I help unlock that within you just by a silly conversation that we might have? What can we do?
Yeah.
Sometimes I can go from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah.
I can get really excited, really amped up about somebody's idea, and they might just be like, dude, I kind of regret telling you now because like I wasn't ready, to start tomorrow like you're saying I could. And so over the years, I feel like I've actually had to reel myself in, because it would often upset me. Yeah. It would often annoy me when I would be partnering with somebody on something or have them be involved in some way. I would forget that like, okay, I'm effectively projecting my wants and needs, my values onto this person. And then if they can't meet those, I'm getting upset. I need to kind of see them for where they're at, what they can do, and what they want, because what they want and what I want, even though they might want to be included, the results of what we want might be different things.
Yeah.
And so it is like another level of that like self-awareness of having to kind of like reel yourself in sometimes. And it doesn't always have to be like, oh, that person's doing something bad that I think is bad. It can come from good too.
Yeah.
You can be that like maybe too motivational of a friend who pushes somebody too hard, and then what's that going to do to them? Right. If you're super excited about like, dude, you could totally start that brand in the next 6 months. Here's 9 ways I bet we could do it.
Yeah.
That might sound like a lot of pressure to them, and if they're not ready to start that or accept that challenge, it's probably going to make them feel demeaned in the process. Yeah. You know what I mean? By being like, wait, okay, well, you just said I could do all these things, and I don't feel like I can do all these things. So now how do I feel?
Yeah.
It's weird, because like when you're trying to encourage somebody, it's like that encouragement can just fall off a quick cliff really fast that actually becomes discouragement. Yeah. Honestly.
100%.
And that's a big thing that I've had to like catch myself on a lot over the years. It's like, okay, I still love being, the encouraging friend. I always want to listen to somebody. I always want to, get them excited about their ideas, but talk about them practically. Yeah. But I've also been able to kind of like stand back now and really identify and listen to somebody. Like if we're talking about that idea or that goal they want to do, I'm going to listen to it in a very logical way. And yes, I might have 50 different exciting things that I want to tell them to try and push them to do it. But I'm also going to take that step back and be like, okay, but do I feel like they're ready?
Yeah.
Or is it my place to tell them, oh, they could totally do it? They might just want to expel the energy. You know what I mean?
Right.
They just might want to talk about the idea.
Yeah, man.
And sometimes talking is maybe all somebody wants to do. You know, maybe that's the extent of their idea that they want to do, is just like, I have this really cool idea.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would I make myself mad at them for not doing their idea if they weren't actually ready to do it?
No, I agree.
So jumping back in a little bit, what was growing up like? You know, because again, we've explained kind of like, okay, here's how I was in school. I kind of had this like welcoming mindset, all that sort of stuff. Like, does that come from like kind of how you were raised at home? Does that come from like parent figure?
Yeah.
Like where is that?
So I think a lot of I always think about how other people are thinking, right? And I think a lot of that came from when I was younger. My parents always argued, and, you know, like we're sitting at the kitchen table, you know, having dinner or whatever it is. And it was always this moment of kind of a lot of like pressure and a lot of anxiety. And that's why I think the anxiety came in for me later on in my life, or at least maybe it was kind of rolling the whole entire time. I just started to really feel it tangibly towards the middle, you know, towards when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. But it was a lot of like walking on eggshells. You know, my parents were always getting divorced. I was sitting at the edge of the banister upstairs and like listening down, and like I would hear the TV on, and is that my parents arguing? You know, just like hearing those types of things, and that being very traumatizing for me growing up as a kid, because I just wanted, you know, the people that, you know, are helping you grow and become who you are later down the road. At that time, I'm just like, man, I feel really lost, right? You know, I was always afraid that my whole life, I was afraid my parents were going to get divorced. And that was really, really tough, because it's like the two people that you loved more than anything in the world always arguing and going against each other. So for me, it was always this, man, I was listening to how they were feeling and also trying to solve their problems at the same time. And I had to come to this moment and realization of like, all of that time, that wasn't my job, right? It wasn't my responsibility to try to solve their relational problems. That's their responsibility. So I took on that responsibility a lot. So I think as I got older, as I'm going into these different situations, I see people and I see their problems, or I see things that they're struggling with, and I just want to help them, right? Which comes in a good way. But you know, early on, it was like, they got this thing they're dealing with. They don't necessarily need my help, right? So I would in the beginning, I would just try to help them. Now what I do is I actually just give a picture of what I think they should be doing, right? Or what I think could help them be better in their life. Now they have the opportunity to make the decision on whether or not they want to align with that or not. I give the open door. The open door is there, but I'm not going there and like knocking them over the top of the head and saying, hey, yo, like you should be doing this instead. It's like, let's just set an example to hopefully be something that helps people to take that step. And if we can help people to take that step, there's no pressure. It's just a step, right? Yeah. And that's alignment. So for me, I think it came from this challenge that I had growing up of trying to just make sure everybody was feeling okay and all these different things. And then now doing it in the capacity that I do now, it's not as overwhelming, because if they do it or if they don't, that's their decision. It's not my decision for them. And I don't need to be the one making their decision. All I need to do is I need to live my life the way that I feel like I'm supposed to live my life. And hopefully, based on any situation that I go into, whether it's like walking into the gas station, talking to the gas station clerk and just being kind to them, or, you know, the waitress, you know, at the restaurant when you're getting food, like being nice to them, or talking to somebody when they're waiting in line to pick up Chipotle or whatever it is, like all those different things. Those are moments that we can actually help make the world a better place just by being intentional and kind with our time. My goal is that when I have a conversation with somebody, I leave them better than they found it. I teach my team that all the time. I say, guys, wherever you are, if you're at an event, if you're at the gym, wherever it is, be kind. People at LRX and our team, this is what they do. They make people feel like better versions of them, because they realistically have the opportunity to be better, right? So we demonstrate that example in the way that we carry ourselves, no matter where we are, right? So now you imagine a world that was like that all the time. It wasn't like, I'm going to get mine, you go get yours. It's let's help each other to get from point A to point B, and help each other align with what we were supposed to be doing anyways. And that's just by being kind and authentic to people anywhere that we go. And again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, where it's like, oh, those people are fake. Well, they can call you fake all day. And if you're kind to them 10 times in a row, at some point they're gonna be like, wow, maybe that's not fake, and maybe I'm just being the jerk, right? Mm-hmm. So I just think like, that for me was something that was so important to realize, is just like, just be authentic and kind to people and love them. That's all we need to do in this world, right? And that's going to help you grow a business realistically. That's going to help you grow friendships, and it's going to help you just make the world better. Because what do we need right now? We just need people helping the world become a better place. That's it. And if we have more of those, the world's better. That's it. That's the solution to the problem. So one person at a time is all we're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. So growing up, you're leading with this authenticity. You're leading almost with this problem-solving mentality of like, hey, I've dealt with some unfun things. I don't want anyone else to feel this way, so how can I make their day better? You mentioned earlier kind of a succession, a domino effect of a bunch of just like negative and probably not fun things, obviously, to deal with.
Yeah.
And obviously you can share whatever you want to share, but like walk me through that timeline. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Because you said earlier, it kind of culminates with a conversation with your mom on the front porch. What's going through your mind day to day as these things just kind of continue to stack up? And I'm asking this not to be like, tell me all your dirty laundry.
Yeah.
But more so, whenever there's parts of someone's story that are told in this way, it's like, oh, I had this really, really bad part of my life, and then I got through it, and now we're talking about the cool thing.
Yeah.
And I always think it's like, well, I think the value comes from that dark period.
Yeah.
It's not so much what we did after, because that's kind of the result of the really hard work that we made. So whenever possible, I always like to kind of like dive into that section of like, what was that area of life like? And that was towards the end of high school, or was that after high school?
The moment was my sophomore year of college. That's when
Okay.
the big moment, the culminating moment was. And obviously your whole life builds up to this one moment where you talk about this domino effect of things that all come tumbling down at once. And I think for me, it was not doing what I personally wanted to do all the way up until that point. I had all these people controlling my emotions, or by the as a bystander of the situation, my emotions were being controlled. I was doing things for other people, not really actually wanting to do them for other people, but doing them because I felt like I had to, right? And that's not a good place to love people from. It's, when you're just like doing it just because you feel like you need to. Like there's no authenticity there. So for me, there was so much time in my life of doing things just because so-and-so wanted it, or even I thought they wanted it, right? I told myself that they wanted it. And then I get frustrated with them because the outcome is them not reciprocating it, or doing it the way, not reciprocating it, or giving me feedback, or even affirming me for the thing that I did. And I'm just searching for this love, or this example, or this picture of what I wanted in reciprocation when I never even asked for it. So I'm doing all these things over and over and over again, hoping for a response, not getting it. And then I get to this point of time where I'm so far down in that path that it's like, it causes me so much anxiety, because then I feel stuck. I can't go anywhere, right? And that was, for me, that was a big thing, is like just feeling stuck in situations, and really just stuck in situations from people. I was in, 2 relationships growing up, all the way up until that point. I was in a relationship from like 7th or 8th grade on to like my sophomore, junior year of high school. And then I immediately got into another relationship, was in that relationship from junior year of high school to junior year of college. And then that was like 7.5, 8 years of my adolescence that I was in a relationship. And that's like a young age. And realistically, I just wanted to be loved, right? I wanted to feel a sense of love from somebody. And that stemmed from not feeling love from specifically my dad growing up, because he didn't really show up the way that my mom wanted him to show up in their relationship. So I love my dad. He's an incredible guy. But that was what the culmination was. And I think one thing that I've been feeling just very strongly recently is that our world changes when there's like a strong father and husband in the household that provides an opportunity for their son and daughter to feel a sense of value and purpose, because there's strength in that piece. And I feel like the father and the husband is very fundamental. And when you remove that from the picture, you actually remove confidence from the picture, because that was what was supposed to be there in the first place. A mom does so much of the nurturing and the caring and the loving and the emotional side of things. The father's like the strong leader, like the person that's supposed to be calling and expecting things out of their kids and helping them to grow in a way, because that's the family unit, right? So for me, it was a picture of not having that got me to a place of like not feeling like a sense of value or love growing up, that really caused me a lot of anxiety, and then created that domino effect of things. there was a moment after that domino effect where I was sitting in Costa Rica. I was on a trip, a mission trip outside the country, and we're going around, and it's like a leadership development trip. And one of the topic of the day was actually like, what are your love languages? And I'm somebody that can talk about my emotions. I can talk about my feelings. Like, I can do this type of stuff. And we had a couple other nights, and I was just like talking. Like, I could talk about everything. And this night, it came to me, and it was this moment in time where we're talking about our love languages. I share my love languages at that time. I don't even remember what they were at the time. And then I was like, that's about all I got. And somebody asked me a question, and it was basically along the lines of, Ryan, who in your life has demonstrated love to you? And I responded with, I don't know. And that was and then I literally cried for the next 4 hours. I was sitting there in this group, and it was this moment of time where I'm like, what the heck is wrong with me? Like, it's not that I haven't had friends or that I haven't felt loved, but it was because the people that I wanted to love me, or the people in my life that I wanted to love me, didn't love me the way that I wanted to be loved by them, right? So in that moment, I realized that there was a transition period in my life that was going to be happening, and understanding why I had felt so much pain up until that point. And it was this transformation and this transition from the old version of me, the one that desired love, that needed affirmation, all these different things, into a strong version of myself that felt love from things that I created rather than just from other people. It was more of like a codependent relationship, more than being independent in things that I wanted and that I needed. Because I was always doing things for other. It's not bad to serve and love other people, but it is bad to serve and love other people from a standpoint of like doing it just because you feel like you need to, not because you want to. So those were very big moments for me that was transitioning my perspective so that I could actually serve other people, and that I could actually love other people better from a different perspective. And that thorn in my flesh, I guess, essentially, there's a verse in the Bible that says, in 2 Corinthians 12, that says, basically, like, Paul is given like visions and able to dream dreams and all these different things. And the Bible says there's a messenger of Satan is given to him to harass him, to keep him from becoming conceited. And Paul pleads with God. He said, God, take this from me. And God says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. So I talked about like how my pain was going to be used for purpose, right? And in my weakness, it allowed me to be who I am today, because I realized what my purpose was, is to use my pain for purpose to impact other people, and to use my weakness to impact other people. Growing up, I had tons of skill sets. I was very good at soccer. People liked me. I played music. I'm entrepreneurial. I'm a business-minded person. I'm smart. All these different things. I had all these skill sets, right? And I always wondered, like, why am I so good at all this different stuff? But then I also wondered, why am I feeling so much internal turmoil in my life? Realistically, if I wouldn't have felt that internal turmoil in my life, I'd be a very arrogant, conceited individual because of the skills that I possess. The anxiety and the weakness helped me to humble myself and understand that my job here is not to do things for myself. It's to do things for other people and to serve other people through my life. And I think that moment was the realization. The moment when I'm sitting there in Costa Rica was the realization that that's where I was. This is who I am. This is why it happened, and this is how I'm going to move forward. And I don't want to ever be in a position where I am so successful or whatever it is, and I become arrogant. I forget and lose track of the things that I started it for in the first place. So for me, it was pain for purpose, using weakness to help other people understand what their purpose was. That's the transition to where it is now.
Do you think that there is a way that a lot more people can have or find their way to that unlock moment for themselves?
Yeah.
Because obviously everybody's just go, go, go. Everybody's caught up in their own systems, all their own cycles, all this sort of stuff. They don't often have the time or make the time necessarily to take that step back and maybe identify those things in themselves and have, and they also probably, can't go on a mission trip to Costa Rica, whatever it may be. Like, what do you think it is that like a lot of us could do to like slow down and have that unlock moment if we tried?
Well, to be honest, my perspective is that there's two things working in our world. There's one working for you and there's one working against you. The one working against you wants you to be distracted. If you're distracted, you can never see the goodness of your life. You can never see what's possible, right? Because it's distraction, distraction, distraction. That's addiction. That's all these different things that distract us from being able to see clearly what it is our life can have, right? So if we can stay distracted, we're not going to be able to add any value to the world, right? So the moments that you can not be distracted, and really truly lean into it are the moments that are going to unlock your potential and unlock what you're supposed to be doing. My understanding is, is that we're all desiring this constant state of progress. We never want to get worse. We always want to get better. You can't tell me that you don't wake up like you want to wake up and you want to be worse than yesterday. You always want to be better than you were, right? You always want to grow, and that's aligning with what our intention and purpose is for life, right? So for me, it's really understanding why we are here, asking ourselves that question and slowing down long enough to understand it and then move forward for it. Because sometimes you got to pause completely to understand where it's going to be. And the pause for me in my life was that moment where I'm like really struggling. The only way I was going to get out of that is if I stopped and I understood, I looked for help, I asked for help, and then I took steps into that direction. I think a lot of times we can work against ourselves, right? Because we don't really want to take the steps that we know we need to take to get there because it's too scary. One of the ways that, to answer your question directly, the Bible says in James 1:5, if you ask God for wisdom, God will give you wisdom, but only if you ask in confidence and faith that he would provide it. And confidently asking for that wisdom, but then receiving that wisdom, for me, if you ask for the wisdom and then if you don't ask confidently for the wisdom that, the Bible says that God will give you, then you're basically just smacking God in the face and saying, you don't have it. You're not going to give it to me. It's impossible for me to receive it. But if you believe that he's going to give it to you, then you can actually unlock and understand it and then get it. The problem is when we unlock that potential, the fear is too often the thing that locks us down from being able to take steps forward. You get the wisdom, you know what you need to do. Now you have a decision to make. Are you going to do it or you're not going to do it? Because a lot of times you come to that deciding moment, that crossroads moment in time where it's like, I could either go there, I could not go there. Not going there means staying exactly where I am. Going there means doing something different. And I'm in one of those crossroads moments in my life again. We'll always come to those moments in time, right? Where it's like, oh, that looks real scary. I don't know if I want to do that. And that's the problem. The people that are successful and that get there are the people that get so freaking uncomfortable that the outcome becomes the outcome instead of the current reality, right? You either stay there or you're going there. You make the decision. Nobody else is stopping you. What are you going to do about it, right? You're the only one that can decide. Nobody else can decide for you. It's internal. So take the step or don't take the step. You know what you need to do it, right? And I think a lot of times people always ask, if people say like they don't know what their purpose is in life, I get really frustrated because I say, you know exactly what your purpose is. You're just too scared to do it. You know what your dreams are. I ask everybody when I sit down at lunch or dinner, when we have meetings, I'm meeting new people or whatever it is. I ask them straight up, and it sounds like a cliche question, but I literally just say, what is your dream? Like, what's your purpose? Why are you here? And I will not let them leave the table until they give me the answer. They cannot say I don't know. And I literally preface, do not say I don't know because it's not true. You know what it is. What are you going to do about it? I get crazy answers. And I ask another question. I'll ask, what's the dream? What would you do if money was no issue and, you have to do something different than you're doing now, what would you do, right? I ask that question all the time. And for me, the answer is always, I would be a country singer. I would go out and I'd grab my guitar, be a country singer and make an album. Realistically, I could tangibly do that. I could go out there and I could record a country album and then release it. I can do that. What's stopping me from doing that? Is it the fear of what other people might think? Right? Realistically, that's what it is. Yeah. Right? Or the money or the time or all those different things. You'll make 100 different excuses, but what are you going to do about it? Are you going to take the leap and you're going to go do it, or are you not going to do it? Right? And the anxiety that you feel in your stomach will go away when you embrace it and you move. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's my perspective.
Well, that's all the time I'm sure there's kind of all these debates that I feel like I've seen over the years of the conversation of well, do people have it in them to actually chase their dreams, or stuff's hard, so not everybody can do it, and blah, blah, blah. And it's who really has it in them to, if everybody could be a billionaire CEO, there'd be no billionaire CEOs and all this sort of stuff. There's got to be the worker bees and there's got to be the blah, blah, blah. And I feel like over the last couple of years, I feel like I have landed on the answer of I believe that just like what we're talking about, everybody has it in them to unlock that purpose. Yeah, 100%. And everybody has it in them. Everybody, that is the part where I am, a little like dreamy and existential maybe of like, no, everybody has it in them to do whatever it is that they want.
Yeah.
But it's that challenge part. But do they have it in them to unlock it and then use it?
Yeah, man. I'm in the exact moment, it's always like a flashback for me, because I'll come to the moment, the crossroads moment where you got to make a decision. And I'll come to another crossroads moment where I need to make a decision, right? And right now I'm in that crossroads moment where I need to make a decision. The last 2 years I spent in the back of my van driving across the country, state to state, dropping in different gyms, building relationships with people. I've been in hundreds and hundreds of gyms over the past couple of years, just building relationships, meeting new people. That's how I built the brand. I had a couple $100. I didn't have any money for advertising. So realistically, there was no paid ads on Facebook running, and we didn't have enough money to pay influencers to do marketing or advertising for us or to push our products. So I literally had to do it from one handshake at a time. You look at our social media page, our Instagram following, we're up to almost 12,000 followers, and that's from 95% of shaking hands and asking to follow us on Instagram. That's insane. Nobody else has done that. But the authority that you build in that space helps build the company and helps build the brand to where you want it to be. And then the foundation's really, really strong, right? But for me, I'm at this point now where I literally just had a team meeting on Monday, and I put my foot in the ground. I said to the team, I'm not traveling again like that. I can't do it anymore. But realistically, the business has gotten too big for me to be on the road traveling. I need to be maintaining and vision casting. So I'm in this position now where it's like I'm putting my foot in the ground. I said, okay, we're going to call our team. We have like 15 people that run around and do things like I've been doing, but we're going to call our team to do it now. So I'm now in this crossroads moment where I'm almost transitioning my identity for the past couple of years, and it's been challenging. I've been a little anxious, been a little stressed out, because I'm transitioning what my identity was into where I'm going to be in the future, and actually slowing down, which is kind of crazy because it's like been hustle, hustle, hustle. But realistically, recently got into a relationship with a girl that I love and will marry, and I have to make those decisions, and it's scary, right? It's like, wow, like I really got to do this now. Am I going to be okay just waking up in the same bed every single day? Is that going to be okay for me? Is that going to be comfortable? Probably not comfortable, but probably exactly what I need. You know what I mean? And so I'm at this crossroads now where I'm going to realistically move away from being in Columbus, Ohio, and being in that same place. I haven't really been here that much. I've been so many different places. I'm going to be moving. That's scary. That's big change. That's different than what I grew up on, right? I could always come back, but then realistically, if I move, I'm not coming back, So you're actually transitioning from where you were to where you want to go, and that's scary. And I get it. It's scary, but we have to do it, and you have to do it. If you feel a calling to go and do something, just go and do it, embrace every moment of it, and it's going to be 10 times better. It's just going to be really uncomfortable on the way there.
Yeah, it's every single cliche that you could say or that anybody could say about like trying to do something that you feel like you want to do. Every single thing. It's going to be scary. It's going to be difficult. The most difficult things are the things that are most worth it. It's worth it because it is hard. Yeah. Nothing that's worth it is easy. Like every single, motivational cliche one-liner you can say, those are all overstated and have become cliches because they're just true. Yeah. And a lot of the times, and I've known people like this, so often it's way easier to laugh at those things and say, that's just so cheesy, it's so dumb. It's way easier to do that and discredit it so you don't have to like feel the pressure of like, oh, maybe that's right though. Yeah. Maybe I do need to put some extra work in. Maybe I do need to work a little bit harder. It's way easier, especially in the world of social media now, to look at any motivational speaker or whatever it may be and be like, oh God, they're just so cheesy. I can't stand them. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of them that I can't stand either. Right. But I can still separate myself of whatever they're talking about. What value can I find in that? I don't have to sit and praise them or think that they're an amazing, awesome social media influencer person. What's the thing that they're saying? And how does it make me feel? How does it make me think? Because then there's still value that I can take instead of just putting those blockades up of, God, everything you're saying is just so cheesy. And yeah, I get it's difficult, but like, come on. It's like, no, like all those things about how worth something is equating to how difficult it is to get, it's all correct. Yeah. And because that goes back to the thing that we were talking about earlier of like, if everything was easy, if making movies was easy, everybody would be making a movie. Yeah. And everybody's not. Most people are watching them because it's incredibly difficult to get there, to climb that ladder, to make those things happen. And again, none of it starts until you can identify like, okay, this single step that I'm taking isn't just, oh, I'm just going to do it. That single step that you're taking is, okay, this is step one in maybe a very long and difficult journey.
Yep.
But like you were saying, like, but I know the result at the end is the thing that I want. And I don't get that result unless I face the challenge.
Yeah. I think you have to be careful too, like the end result, right? Because you're realistically, if you keep going, you're going to get there to that result that you've equated as like the end. And then you also associate that result as the end all be all of all things good. But it's not.
Yeah.
You know, you have to find purpose in something greater than the achievement. Because if you find the identity in the achievement, what happens when you achieve it? There's nothing else for you, right? So I think you just have to be super careful, and we have to make sure that we're being realistic with each other. It's great to work hard and want to go and get something, and then go and get it. You know, you see these NFL players that are winning Super Bowls, and then they're committing suicide, or they don't love their life, or they're getting divorced, all these different things. You have to be careful what you're doing on the way there. I've read tons of books, you know, by CEOs or people that started companies, and you know, their kids are committing suicide, they're getting divorced, their wife is killing themselves, you know what I mean? All these different things, and you just have to be careful, because the achievement isn't what you were created for. You know, you can work hard to get there, and it can be inspirational along the way, but make sure your identity isn't in the achievement. Make sure that you have enough understanding that thing's not going to be it's not going to be the end all be all of all your fulfillment in your life, because then you're going to be in a bad spot at the end of it, right? You have to enjoy the ability to get there, and realistically, you don't really love, and this is cliche again, but you don't love the outcome, you love the process, and you love the refining. That's why progress and purpose is so important, because as you constantly progress in your life, you become better and better and better. And you're going to keep doing that till the day you die, realistically. But you have to understand that that's just the unknown part of life that we're headed towards, that, you know, we're not going to be able to see completely clearly. You know,
it's the value piece that we've talked about so much up until this point. It's, again, we can set all the goals, we can be motivated, we can be excited. Whether we do something about it or not is a whole other thing. But it's like understanding why you're chasing after that thing.
Yes.
And I love that you said, you know, it's not just about the achievement. It's how do you feel? What do you learn on the way to that achievement? How does that achievement make you feel? And then kind of what comes next, and not what comes next in the grind, hustle until you die sort of thing. Like, because again, I'm glad that you pointed that out, of like, there is, and it's an overused term, but like, there is a balance to all of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I've ran into the brick walls countless times over the last handful of years of becoming off balance, of focusing so much on one aspect of something that I forget that, oh, this needed maintenance, and that needed maintenance, and that needed maintenance. And so we can have all the biggest dreams we want in the world, and yes, figure out what is in you to allow you to take on that challenge and do something about it. But you also have to understand why you're wanting to do something about it in the first place. It's not just the, oh, I want to do it because I want to be a millionaire. I want to, you know, whatever. It's like, okay, fun, but why? What's the reason why? What is that value? What is that purpose that you're feeling like you're unlocking on that way there? Because, you know, if I want to go and make a movie one day, my purpose doesn't become unlocked once I make that movie. I'm aware of the things I want to do and how maybe making a movie one day fits into that. Yeah. How that adds to the fulfillment. Yeah. It's not just the end piece of like, once I can start doing this, then it's all over. Or once I can say, you know, the same thing of, you know, you're saying that you're in the middle of making, you know, big, slightly scary, you know, life-changing decisions right now. Yeah. You could sit and be like, I just wanted to create an activewear brand, and I did it, and it's dope, and man, once we hit millions of dollars, I'll be set and I'll be good. And it's like, oh, but you're not, you know, your challenges, the scary parts are actually what you're doing with your life. Yeah. I think it's, if you get to a point, and I think it's scary for some people that get to a point of being incredible at a certain skill set, right? That's almost like a scary position to be in. There's so much expectation on you in that space, and the world's looking at you as like this hero, right? And you're not a hero. You're just really good at football, you know? And we have to come down to that reality. Like, yeah, it took you a lot of time to get there, but like at the end of the day, if you're not really truly caring and adding value like we talked about to people's lives, then what are you really doing? And it's really just selfish at the end of the day. Why do you want your goal?
because I want to get there and I want to be the best in the world. That's just a lot of I statements, not a lot of we or you statements, right? It's just conceited to me, to be honest. And that's like sad for me to say. But when I was in, I competed in CrossFit for a while, and I had desire and aspiration to be a competitive CrossFit athlete and go to the CrossFit Games and all this different stuff. And I kind of think it's interesting and funny now, because I kind of made the decision. I was either going to be an entrepreneur or I was going to be an athlete. And I was really kind of curious on what that needed to be. And I was really just seeking clarity and wisdom. And as I was doing that, 2 weeks later, I tore my pec. And it was like this crossroads moment of like, I was either going to get surgery on my pec, or I was going to not get surgery and be able to go start running the road. I had already planned out this tour and this trip. I was going to go across country. If I would have got surgery on the pec, I wouldn't have been able to go and do those things. So realistically, I gave up getting surgery on my own body to be competitive in something that I was really good at, to go and serve other people, right? And we talk about that humility aspect, right? Using that weakness to impact and serve. If I was still able to be as good as I was without this constraint now, and it doesn't really matter, right? Then I wouldn't be serving people the way that I needed to, and I wouldn't be there. So we have to look at these things and wonder why they happen, to then use those to springboard us to where we're going to go. But we can never expect the fulfillment of the outcome to be the end all be all of all things. It's just not the case.
So speaking on that moment of like kind of like the springboard thing, and you had shared earlier, like when, again, like that culmination moment of like when you decided like, okay, I want to change these things. You talked about like the inheritance and coming down to the last 500 and like, okay, I want to do something with this. You started up. What's the first little bit of time like? Are you seeing the results of like, all right, cool, I've got my friends, buying the stuff. But again, like, are you feeling all this fulfillment and purpose that we're talking about? Are you kind of working with that foot forward? Is it like, I know the purpose of this. I know I'm just going to do it, and I'm so certain that it's going to work. Here we go. Like, I'm going to start traveling. Like, how long into things did you start traveling? When did you start seeing that, like, oh, this wasn't me just like spending $500 on t-shirts and hoping my friends bought them.
Yeah.
I can see the vision. I can see the path starting to clear, and that's where I'm headed.
Well, there was for the first couple of years, I was literally just trying to prove people wrong. That was it. I was in a relationship, and one thing I heard in that relationship was that because of the struggle with anxiety and depression that I had, I wasn't going to be able to be like a leader. I wasn't going to be able to be an impactor, because that was something that I struggled with, and that was almost like demasculinizing me as an individual. And I hear this, and I'm like, there's no way in heck I'm letting that happen. You know what I mean? So for the first couple of years, I almost had this like, this just frustration or this chip on my shoulder that was like, I need to get there. I need to go there. I'm going to do this, right? And I came to this realization that nobody cares. They don't care, And that was the same thing when I tore my pec, right? Like, I had this moment when I got on the bike after I tore my pec, and I'm riding on the bike, and I just have this overwhelming sense of peace. I no longer have to compete for anybody else. They don't care. They're going to ask me, are you okay? And then move on. When I walk into a building, nobody's thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves, right? When I walk into the gym, we've all done this. You walk into the gym and you're like, oh man, I wonder if I look good today. Does my outfit look good, or do I look jacked, or whatever it is? And realistically, nobody's thinking that. You're the only one thinking that. If you were to be able to get speech bubbles of everything that everybody else is thinking in the gym, they're thinking the same thing about themselves. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
So that was the moment. That was a moment in time where I had this transition period of like, why am I doing this more so, And it wasn't really like the why, and I was doing the same thing over and over and over again for 3 years, going to events, selling t-shirts by myself, realistically. And when I finally felt like there was momentum, it was when I laid down that desire to prove anybody else wrong, and I just started trying to serve others, and I started trying to create something. Realistically, that moment came this year. Like, it was back in January. I was at this conference, and I had this realization in that moment that it was like, all right, I'm going to stop like trying so hard to do this and like throw a bunch of stuff at a wall and hope it sticks. And I'm just going to kind of breathe. I'm going to stop trying to choke out this business, choke out this idea, get there to prove somebody wrong. And I'm just going to let it breathe for a minute. And then it's going to grow. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as I stopped doing that, we hire on 10 to 15 people, and they're all wanting it. People want to be a part of it. And now there's real momentum because I started to do it for the right reasons. And there's something about aligning with what you're supposed to do that helps you get there, right? When you're going against it over and over and over again, and you're trying to do it for the wrong reasons, you're never going to get there, right? Realistically, the business grew, but the heartbeat didn't grow, right? It was just the business grew monetarily, and we got more followers, but the heartbeat of it didn't grow. And the heartbeat and the thing that impacts other people, that's what gives you just like this downhill effect of like you're catching momentum and you're really going, right? So that's what it was like for me. It was a lot of time of just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then we got to a point of like switching up how we were doing it, and that's when it started to grow. And it started to be just about that value piece and the serving of other people that helped us to get where we are and where we want to go and give us clear vision for where we wanted to be. Because it was no longer me, it was we. I had a whole team of people that were going there, and now they're making the heartbeat. It's not just me trying to convince people that there's this heartbeat or that there's this brand and that it's worth you listening to. Because that's not how it gets there. It's when other people are talking about it and they're building it up and they're painting it as a good picture, which those first couple of years, I'm not saying they were terrible and they weren't worth it. Every moment of that time helped me to get to where I am. And it was when I kind of humbled myself before it and just said, I'm not going to get there by myself. I need other people to come along.
Do you feel like there was like a similarity between the first couple of years of running LRX and what you mentioned earlier back in kind of like high school years of like, it wasn't that you were living for other people, but you were still kind of motivated off of that, I have to prove something to somebody else. I'm doing things like, yes, there wasn't somebody saying, I want you to start a clothing line, so you started a clothing line. It wasn't necessarily that, but it was still that kind of like direct, like it correlated from something else, someone else, that being the motivation rather than something in you being the motivation.
Yeah, so it was me trying to help others for a very long time in my life. Then me seeing that helping others wasn't working and it made me feel like crap when they weren't reciprocating it, to me not giving a crap about others realistically in an authentic way, to then transitioning and having a healthy perspective of the way that we need to serve people. It wasn't just to do it just so that other people would reciprocate it, right? Or it wasn't just to do it so that I could get an outcome. It's literally just do it and do it because you want to and don't expect anything else in return. And then it works. That's the way it works. So I actually had a healthy perspective of it, which helped it to be where it is. So the alignment with that was, a lot of times you'll have a traumatic experience and then you try to do the exact opposite, which also isn't healthy. you gotta find the middle ground. So you find the middle ground and then that works, right? But don't do the exact opposite. A lot of times our biggest skill set is can be our biggest detriment, right? But only if we let it and only if we don't find balance in it. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's a good question, though. It's interesting to reflect on.
Yeah. Well, just hearing it, I'm kind of like putting two and two together. Like, okay, those sounded like, very, very similar like points in the timeline. Now, another part that I want to dive into, like, when did you start traveling with the brand and everything? Because I feel like that is a big step that I don't know. You already explained it earlier of like the value of, promoting something via a handshake, via actually meeting somebody. I feel like that's a big step that a lot of people would not take. What was it that made you say like, yeah, I should travel to, a bunch of gyms or events or conferences or whatever? Was it just like, I want to do this and I know it'll be good for the brand? Or like, walk me through like the decision to just start traveling everywhere to start promoting the brand.
It's interesting to talk about right now because I literally just got done with what the 2-year stint was, like literally just like 2 days ago. And when I put the foot in the ground and said I'm not doing it anymore. Why did I start traveling? Well, I wanted to grow the business, but realistically, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. I knew I was already doing it locally, but I also just did not want to be where I was. So I remember when I first got in the van, and this was like, this is like the moment I'm in now, again, the crossroads. It was a crossroads moment. I got in the van. I literally had it packed up with everything. I was, at that point in my business, I was transitioning. I had a couple people that were working for me previously, and then they weren't working for me anymore, which was kind of challenging because it was like the early stages of the business and kind of like this young version of me and young version of everybody really at the time when we were working on the business. And I was transitioning, and it was my one employee that was working for me for since I started the business. It was her last day. She packed the van, helped me pack the van, and then one of my new employees was coming in, and she was just going to work a couple hours a week for us just to fulfill orders and stuff like that while I was on the road. And I remember I got in the van, and I started driving down the road, and I started bawling. I was just like, I had my whole life for the past couple years in the back of a van, and I was going somewhere. I had no clue. I had an idea of where I was going, but I didn't know where I was going to stop that night. I just was driving. And it was this moment of like insecurity. I was in such a place of vulnerability because I had everything that I had ever built in the back of this van, and I'm driving down the road across the country. And I think for me, I needed to get away from where I was to start I felt like I found who I was when I was on the road and traveling so much, right? I actually had just gotten out of a relationship with the girl that I'm currently dating, so we broke up and got back together. But I was kind of finding myself. I was like really on the road, traveling around, sharing this message, sharing this company, impacting and serving people. But realistically, it was like this was, impacting and serving myself and figuring out who I was, and also like going against my fear, all this anxiety that I had growing up. It was like, well, what better way to combat anxiety than put yourself in super uncomfortable positions? And I think I'm finally starting to get the why as I'm verbally processing this right now. But it's like, I didn't want things to ever scare me anymore. So I had to go and put myself in very uncomfortable situations to control the fear and control the anxiety. Because realistically, I knew I was going to be in places where I felt stuck. I knew I was going to be in places where it was going to be uncomfortable, or I didn't want to be there, or a city that was kind of sketchy, or wherever it was. And by yourself on the road, you really get uncomfortable, right? On the road, traveling across the country, when you're with your thoughts and the air conditioning doesn't work in your van, or the music's, you get the aux cord jammed into the speaker and it doesn't work anymore, and you're traveling across the country and you're just kind of listening to your phone up to your ear. There's something about those moments that really gets you uncomfortable. So I had to get extremely uncomfortable and be content with that discomfort for me to start to understand who I was and to break free from that guy or that boy growing up that was anxious and depressed and didn't really know himself or have a sense of identity in a way, to where I am today that helps me to help others. But during that time, the reason I think that I did it was because I needed to find out who I was, and I didn't want to have fear anymore. I wanted to look something in the eye, and I wanted to say no matter what it was, I was going to keep doing it, and I was going to keep going and convince myself and help me to believe that what I was doing was possible. I was going to put every single thing on the table. This was what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything else. I'm not looking back. I quit my job. I went on the road, and literally I was making $0 personally. I went on the road. It was all business expenses. Didn't have to pay. I had an apartment back home that I was paying rent on, but like just went and kept going. And there's something about being the new person in a lot of different places where it's like you can kind of figure out who you are because you're in a new spot all the time. So you really understand who you are in those moments, and you really get attuned to who, Ryan is as an individual. And it helped me to overcome fear in my life. Mm-hmm. And I just had to keep going. Yeah. So now I'm in this position of like, okay, what's the fears that I need to overcome when I can't go anywhere?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's so interesting that we're having this conversation right now.
Yeah, I know.
Of all times, when you're like, yeah, and I'm making this next phase decision.
Yeah.
Literally
right.
2
We're
days
at this transition period, right?
At the point of us recording this, just now figuring this. So at what point in time and then this might be a little bit more of like a businessy question, but like at what point in time did you feel like, okay, like I wasn't wrong for feeling like this is a thing that I should be doing?
Yeah.
Like, and it's not necessarily like, oh yeah, I got 100 orders in a day and it was great, but was there that kind of like unlock moment? Was it just something that like the way like it made you feel when you were like, regardless of the numbers or regardless of the business, mm-hmm. this is what it is? Or was it a mixture of like, well, I started, it's awful nice when people do like your brand, and I was getting personal fulfillment. Like,
yeah, I think the moment was somewhat recently, right? What that did was it convinced, and rightly so, the people that are a part of this now to do it with me, right? Like, he's going to sell out for this. He's going to do it. I believe in that because he's putting all of his eggs in this basket, right? It helps people to walk the story with me now because I did that now. Now I like almost have an authority in a way of like, it's possible, you can do it, right? When I teach my sales team, right? When you're in a position where your inventory is low, you don't have that much stuff left over, or, you know, when you're in this position, I realistically got so many reps in the tank to where I can teach my people how to do it, right? And then go and do it themselves. Like we just hired on, you know, we call them community directors, so they're responsible for developing relationships in the local fitness communities and just building community, right? And so we have a community director in Michigan, we have multiple in Ohio, South Carolina, Illinois, Texas, Missouri. We have one in Utah. All of these people I met while I was traveling, right? So we hired them on as I was traveling, and realistically, a lot of them came on more recently. But the point that I felt like I wasn't wrong was just really doing it and then asking other people to do it too, because now they can go and do it, and I have all the authority in the world to tell them how to do it and how to do it well, how to make money while doing it, how to navigate certain situations. I can ask one of my employees a question about what happened at an event and what's going on, and tell them exactly the moment that the things they need to lean into for sales to be better, for impact to be better, or what to say to this gym owner because, you know, it really sounds silly, because he's a divorced guy that has kids, right? Like, I know what to say to these people. I've seen it over and over and over again. I know you can look at a place and every community is almost the same, right? You have the people that are confident. You have the people that aren't confident. You have the people that are really, really good at fitness, but then they're super arrogant, or like all these different things. I know exactly those situations. So for me, it just helped me to help them do what they need to do, because now I understand everything about it. And also, you look at social media advertising or marketing or paid advertisements, your feedback loop from those people is after they buy the product and then leave a review. For me, it was immediate, because I listened to them, I sold them the product, I heard them, I heard what they wanted, and now I solve a problem that they have, they make a purchase, and then I can immediately see their feedback. So it's not just like waiting for this period of time, I see it over and over again, and then I also can ask them what they want. You listen to people. Marketing and advertising and just building a business is listening to your audience and then solving problems that they have. If you're on social media, you can't hear problems as fast as you can hear problems in person. So that gave us a complete leg up, and will continue to give us a leg up, because we know what they need. We know what they want. We see it every single day. So we know how to serve them, because we actually are there every single day. We do 40 to 50 events per month with our team across the country. So from a business perspective, we can see them. We know what they want. We know what they need. And we can solve that problem much faster than if we were e-commerce and not listening. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Let me ask you this. Looking back at the journey up until now, what would you say is the biggest lesson you learned throughout the entire timeline?
Yeah, I think it was humility. Like, just when I'm on the road, and you know, my Instagram bio says, you know, LRX CEO, right? And you're on the road and you're LRX CEO and you're in the middle of a parking lot and you're pulling, you know, black and yellow bins out of the back of a van, and, you know, you can't fit your inventory in there and you have to unpack the whole entire thing, and you're in the middle of this parking lot and you're just in the middle of a parking lot where everybody's going and getting groceries, and you're unpacking your van and people are looking at you like you're a fool. There's humility there. When you're in the back of the van and I'm trying to pull bins out and I'm soaking in sweat because it's 90 degrees outside and I got to take my shirt off, and I'm sweating so much and I'm hitting my head on the ceiling, you know, there's humility there, right? Or when, you know, you run out of gas on the side of the road and you're with one of your employees that you just picked up, that you just hired on, you ran out of gas because you're having too good of a conversation, and you got to run 2 miles down the road to the gas station and pick up a gas can and ask somebody in humility to drive you back to your car and have multiple people turn you down. You're going to learn something from that, you know? Like, these are stories that I'm saying, and you're picturing them as I'm saying them. But, like, for me, it was humility. And that is the biggest lesson that I've ever learned, and that's the only lesson that I feel like, that's the biggest lesson I think anybody needs to learn, is humility. You're not as cool as you think you are, no matter what. And that's what it was like for me, you know? So many hard moments, right? you check into an Airbnb, it's not as nice as you thought it was, or it's pretty gross. You know, you get there and you're like, well, this is where I'm staying, or you don't know where you are half the time. You can never be arrogant in uncomfortable situations. You just can't. And I think that's what I learned. That's the biggest thing that I learned was a huge aspect of humility, to actually stand before people and say, like, yeah, I get it. I understand it. You know, that was tough. Or realistically, like, I hopped in a gym in a new workout every single day at a new gym. I'm in front of these people, right? Like, tearing my pec during that time. Going into a gym and, like, being this big guy that walks into a gym and they're like, why can't you bench more than 135? It's like, that's humility. So for me, it constantly comes back to this, is like this aspect of humility. And when I walk with humility, I can really do what I've been called to do. And that's why I love being on the road, because it's this constant state of learning. You're constantly learning and you're constantly evolving and you're growing quickly, because there's so much to do and so much to understand. And you're not getting very much sleep. You're not eating very healthy. It's quick, it's fast. You're by yourself. You're relying on yourself. You don't know anybody, right? And you just have to step into, I got to step into this gym that I've never seen, people I've never seen before, and try to convince them that what I'm selling is valuable. That's humility. It's like, I mean, you know, you go up and play on stage and you're hoping that they like it, right? And if they don't, you put your whole life into that, you know? Like, and if the outcome is that, that's humility, bro. Like,
yeah.
So humility would be the lesson I learned, and those are all the reasons why, right?
So this next question has like a two different avenues you could take it. Maybe a two-parter. I don't know. But looking forward, like, I'll kind of use a little bit of your dinner and meeting question that you phrased earlier, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's the dream? What's the big goal? What is the thing that we're chasing after? And I phrase that in the sense of, like, what's next? What's the future hold? Either for sure or hopefully with LRX.
Yeah.
Or for sure or hopefully just with you.
Yeah. So for LRX, it's giving other people opportunity to align with a vision that makes them want to put their feet on the ground in the morning. You know, during this there was a period of time in business where I was, like, really focused on the bottom line and making money and driving sales, and I didn't have a team behind me as much, you know. And then I transitioned this perspective, like, I don't care. Like, I used to say, we want to be the biggest business in the industry, right? We want to outdo Lululemon, we want to outdo Nike, we want to outdo all these different companies. And then I kind of realized, like, man, I don't really want to run that rat race like that always, you know. Like, I think LRX will be massive. I think it's going to be a massive company, and I'm excited for that. But I never want to get to the point where the purpose is gone and we're just another company, right? And I want to build the company that makes the most impact on people. What does that look like tangibly? I don't know. Realistically, I think it just looks like waking up every single day and just trying to get better. That's it. I'm focused on now. I know that I have big goals. You know, we want to have brick and mortar locations next to, you know, tons of different like in the malls and different locations all over the country, and create an awesome customer experience. You know, you walk into and people feel like they're at their hometown coffee shop. You know, you walk in, they know your order, you know what you purchased last time. Like, it feels very homey. It's very inviting, kind of like a living room almost. You know, that's a vision that I've had and something that I want to do, you know. But I never want to get to a point where I'm losing track of why I started and what it's there for, right? And I want LRX to be a massive company, not for the money, but for the ability for it to impact others and serve other people. That's it. And that's my heartbeat. That's my desire. If I know that, you know, over $100,000 a year, there's no more happiness there. I don't really need a lot of money. I've been living out of a suitcase for the last 2 years, right? With the same clothes that I wash in the washer at the Airbnb, right? So I don't need a lot of money. I don't need much. I don't really want much. So for me, on that end, I want to have a family that's tight-knit, that's comfortable, that loves each other, not only in my immediate family, but in the family that I create for LRX. I want that to be a place where people feel welcome. And also, I want my wife and my kids in the future to know that they're loved and that they're cared for. That when they look at their dad, and they say, you know, they look at my office and they say, that's where dad serves and impacts a lot of people. It's not that's where dad always spends his time because he doesn't have time for me, right? I want to be present. You know, one big aspiration, and you look at like Chip Wilson, the founder of Lululemon. Founded Lululemon, built it, massive company, right? Had these aspirations, has these goals, you know, for personal development for people, all these different things. You know, his company goes public and it ends up getting taken by shareholders of the company. What Chip Wilson's doing right now is he's literally coaching his son's flag football league, and he founded Lululemon. That's sick. Like, you founded Lululemon, and now you're content coaching your son's flag football league. I want to build something massive, and then I want to be able to not step away, be involved, whatever it is, whatever capacity it is. I just want to be present with people, and I want people to know that that my kids, my wife, all these people feel loved and cared for, and that's really my biggest goal in my life, you know. But I want LRX to be something that also calls other people to action to want to live that same way. You know, we say if you find balance in the way you train, live, and rest, you find life, right? It's the balance of life that gives you the ability to feel contentment and feel fulfillment, right? Otherwise, you're not going to, you know, we said this earlier, but otherwise you're just not going to feel aligned. So I really want other people to feel aligned in their life and feel like their life has value and they're impacting and serving other people, and that's what the company is going to look like, and this is what I want my family and my life to look like at the end of the day. I say that, and I'm not done grinding. I'm going to keep working my butt off, and I'm going to keep doing it because I love what I do. I get hungry about it. You know, I'm now in this transition to what I'm doing now, and I'm like, it's been the last 2 days in the office, and I've had such a blast, you know, because I'm just working on things creatively and developing processes or implementing new projects that I've been trying to do for such a long time that frustrate me or keep me up at night. Now I can actually do it. That makes me feel fulfillment. So just knowing where I'm at, what I want to do in the season, and then walking in alignment with that.
My dude, I've got one last question for you.
Yeah.
One final question. I wrap up every episode of these the same way.
Okay.
So right now, I want you to pretend like everyone everywhere in the world, throw logic out the window, they can hear us, they can understand us.
Yeah.
I want you to pretend like everyone everywhere is listening to you right now on the other end of that mic. You get to share something with them. What is it that you would want them to hear?
Yeah, man. I think one thing that I would want them to hear would be, don't stop whatever you're doing. Keep doing it. Keep going. Refine it. Grow, and never stop pursuing growth in your life, because wherever you are now, tomorrow you won't be there. But where you're going to be 10, 15, 20 years from now, if you stop now, you know, I could have thrown in the towel, you know, I could have taken my life, you know, and I know a lot of people out there struggle and they're going through a hard time, but know that that time is actually preparing you for where you're going to be. And then the challenge that you come up to next, that time is going to prepare you for where you're going to be then 10 years from now. So never stop pursuing growth and progress, and don't ever give up on where you are, because one day you won't be there.
I love it, man. Dude, this was a blast of a conversation.
Yeah, man.
I can't thank you enough for being down
Thanks
to
for having
link
me,
up and make this happen. I'm glad we ran into each other at CrossFit Hannah that one
Yeah,
day
man.
when you were in
Heck
there
yeah.
showcasing LRX. So
Yeah.
speaking of showcasing and promoting LRX,
Yeah.
before we officially say goodbye, where can people find LRX around the internet and all the things we've been talking about this entire episode?
Yeah, man. If you follow us on Instagram, it's at LRX Apparel. You can go to LRXapparel.com and shop as well. And then if you want to follow me on my personal Instagram, it's just Ryan A. Last name's husband. You can make jokes, DM me. It's funny, but that's where you can find us. So.
Beautiful. Dude, this was a fun conversation, man.
Yeah, man.
I'm very glad we
Thanks
made
for
this
having
happen. I appreciate you sharing everything that you did. Again, I can definitely give praise to LRX because I love what you're doing with the brand. I can't wait to see it keep growing. And dude, just thank you for giving me some time out of your day here to chat for, I don't know, almost 2 hours. I appreciate it, man.
I love it. Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
me.
dude.
Yeah, bro.
All right, a very solid conversation, a motivating conversation. Ryan's a dude who has just uncovered exactly what he wants, what he believes, and he has set himself on a path to achieve it. And honestly, like whether you currently feel that way in life or not, I think this episode was just a good reminder that we all have it in us. You know, you just got to like figure out kind of that secret cheat code to unlocking it all. So I feel like there's just no way there wasn't something you couldn't walk away and take away from this episode. Lots of good thoughts, feelings, advice, and opinions were all packed into this one. So if you enjoyed any of what Ryan had to share, or you want to dig into further things that he's doing, or check out LRX, this is a reminder that you can find him at Ryan A. Husband, and you can follow the brand at LRX Apparel. So for sure, go check it all out. Toss some support his way if you feel inclined to do so. But hey, if you do want to keep supporting things even a little bit more, I would love your continued support for this show. So a couple ways you could do that, any of which would be extremely helpful in helping me grow this show and fight the ever-changing AI algorithms that will one day decide if podcasts like this and creators like me are really worthy at all. But first, you can simply support by following us on social at WYDH Pod. I also ask that pretty please you hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening. It would also be very, very cool if you tossed up a rating or a review for the show as well. Toss some stars on there or leave a written review if you really liked what you heard. If you want to keep up with all these episodes in video form also, both these full-length stories and the shorter topic-based 15-minute Fridays, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Ross Tyson. Yes, it's Tyson. It's spelled Theisen. It is, in fact, Tyson. But that's where you can find all of these in video form. They're all right there waiting for you and your eyes to be laid upon them. So do all the things, feed the algorithm, tell somebody about it, whatever you can do to help spread the word of this show and get these stories heard in whatever form. It helps a whole lot more than what you may know, and I truly, truly mean that. Also, one last reminder to check out this week's sponsors, Makers Social, the DIY craft bar located in the Franklinton Arts District. Visit makerscolumbus.com and enter WYDH in the notes of your checkout for $10 off your reservation. And of course, also shouts to Promo West Productions and all the shows they've got coming through Columbus. For more info on every single one of those, you can visit promowestlive.com. But that will do it. That is it. That's another episode in the books. Support if you can, support if you want, but even if you don't, I still have to say thank you so very much for listening. If you're on YouTube, thanks for looking, and I hope you stick around for more because, well, as always, I'll still be back next episode with a brand new guest that you may or may not know of, with a brand new story that you've, well, probably, for sure, never heard.